Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am hiding behind my limelight hedge because I've been kind of dreading doing a very requested video, which is, can you please show me what your roses are looking like? Give us an update on the roses you're growing and how they're growing. The reason I'm hiding behind my limelight hedge is because all of my roses, let me take that back. The majority of my roses are in my front garden because it gets full on scorching sun. I live here in Atlanta, Georgia, which is a zone 7B and 8A. We are very hot and very humid, and roses don't really love humidity because they are so prone to black spot. And so here in Atlanta, the best way to grow them is to give them full sun. Any sort of shade will keep the leaves wetter for longer. The key to roses is to make sure that when rain happens, their leaves dry out quickly. They're in the full sun. They love the full sun. So that's why all of my roses are pretty much up front, except for a few of the more disease-resistant shrub roses that I'm growing in my backyard. There's nothing like the first flush of roses in spring. They have this most magnificent bloom. All of the leaves are healthy. But here's what roses look like after a summer of not treating them, a summer of neglecting them, if you will, in Atlanta, Georgia. So keep watching if you want to see what roses look like if you forget about them all season and do nothing. The blooms, the black spot and all, I'll share with you what my favorites are, which ones are looking good, and which ones are looking a little rough. Also, at the end, I will share with you what I think are the best roses for gardeners that just want to plant something and forget about it and not fuss with it monthly and treat it. But if you are a rosarian and don't want to see roses with a ton of black spot on them, then keep scrolling. This is probably not the video for you. And I'm so sorry, roses. I am going to do better next year. Next year, we won't be seeing something like this. I'm going to start off with everybody's favorite breeder of rose, which is David Austin roses. Everyone seems to love them and buy them. I also got sucked into that hype, and I received 3 David Austin roses as a birthday present a couple of years back, I think now 3 years ago. So they're pretty well established. I'm growing Sophie's Rose, Olivia Rose Austin, and also Emily Bronte. Sophie and Emily, they were chosen because those are my daughter's names, and so, you know, of course. And then Olivia Rose Austin was chosen just because I kept hearing all about it, and so that's why I ordered that one. So let me show you how they're doing. I'm sitting right next to Sophie's Rose. From far away, I feel like it looks like a knockout rose. I hate saying that because up close, it has a lot of petals, and the flower itself is very different from a knockout rose. It's not very scented, lightly scented, similar to a knockout rose, but the color, it really looks like a knockout rose. It has lots and lots of flower power. It's okay in the disease-resistant arena. You can definitely see a lot of black spot on the older leaves. The new leaves are coming in healthy, as they always do, but really black spot starts at the base of the plant and kind of works its way up. So that's why you can see on a lot of my roses, the base might be pretty naked while the top part of the rose looks kind of okay. The one thing that I really do appreciate about Sophie's Rose is the habit of it is pretty nice. Like it's very kind of compact and upright, so it's not taking up a huge amount of room, which I've got a smaller garden, so I appreciate things like that. Also, this rose has been pruned by the neighboring deers. This is the first year that the deer have found my garden, so I haven't been spraying any sort of repellent for the deers. It's just, I'm figuring out kind of how much I want to do. They find it every couple of months and will prune everything for me and get rid of all of the blooms. And you know, that's just the state of the garden right now. I'm formulating my master plan as to what I'm going to do. Am I going to include deer repellent and spray monthly, or am I gonna give them a monthly snack and just kind of call it a loss? I don't know. Next to me is Olivia Rose Austin. If I could only grow one David Austin rose, it would be this one. I can understand what the hype is about this one. It looks pretty good despite the neglect that I have given it. And also the roses are very fragrant, and I just love this shade of pink. It has a very beautiful pale pink color, which I feel like lends itself nicely if you're making bouquets, or just it just pairs well with lots of different colors in the garden. So I really love it. I also appreciate this rose because it sticks to a very nice like shrubby appearance. This one's also been deer pruned. All of them have been. But it's just maintained a really nice form throughout the season, and it's pretty disease resistant. I will say it looks really rough right now, but in the years that I take care of it, this one gives me very little problem, and it gives me a lot of flower power compared to the other roses. This is my least favorite rose. It's basically a mini climber, and I didn't realize that it has this habit, but I've cut this rose completely down to the ground, and it just grows back every year like this. When it is in flower, it is absolutely incredible. It blooms and has kind of multiple blooms on each stem, so like it's really full. This one's already practically bloomed out, but you can see it is just very long, lanky, and almost naked. The new growth is healthy, everything else has been defoliated. This is my daughter Emily's favorite rose. This is Emily Bronte by David Austin. If you are looking for a mini climber, if you want to put like an obelisk right here and let this sprawl across it, I think that's a great choice. But if you were looking for more of a shrub rose and then surprise, you grew this, you might not like it so much. So the plan is to one day get an obelisk and put it right here in the corner. But for now, I think it's time that I cut this back. Maybe it'll bloom one more time this season, maybe not. But this just, you know, it's not a cute look in the garden. Everybody knows and loves David Austin roses, but I feel like not many people know about Kordes roses. I actually learned about Kordes roses from a friend of mine who lives in North Florida. She loves roses and happens to garden in an even more humid environment than I'm in. So when she recommends a rose or a rose breeder, I listen because she is battling worse conditions for growing roses than I will ever face. So Kordes Roses is a German rose breeder, and she's had much better luck with Kordes than she has with David Austin's, and she's actually stopped buying David Austin's altogether. So because of her, I planted 2 Kordes roses this year. One is Pink Enchantment. Now it doesn't look very pink right now, but when the buds first open, they are light pink, and then the blooms age to this white. This is like the little rose that could. It has been as neglected as all of the other ones, but it was just newly planted this year. And typically plants take a little while to establish, which means I should have been babying it more. But clearly you can see it didn't need me, it could handle it. Would the rose look better if I had treated it all season? Yeah, I'm sure. Is there a minimal black spot on this rose compared to the other roses that are more established? Yeah. So I'm really impressed. I think this is going to be a rose that performs really, really well here in my garden. Of course, time will tell, and it's kind of premature, but this rose here is one that if I saw it locally, I would pick up again, just based on the performance this year so far. This is the other Kordes rose that I planted this year. This is called Plum Perfect. I got it solely based on the color. I love purple in the garden, and this is a very beautiful lavender color. I would say it kind of skews pinkish, but it's a good pink, purple, lavender. It's really stunning, especially on a rose. And honestly, I've been impressed with the growth on this rose. It is severely deer pruned right now. The deers love it because it is the closest rose to the street, so it's the first one they get to nibble on and enjoy. But once I figure out how to keep the deer away, this one seems to be a very, very vigorous grower. You can see how much growth it's put on in just 1 year. It was planted the exact same time as the other Kordes rose, and I feel like this is double the size of the other one, and it's definitely triple the size it was when I first put it in the ground. So really impressive growth, minimal black spot considering all of the things that it had to face with a very neglectful owner this year. So far, I'm very impressed with the performance on this guy. And behind me is also a pretty strong performer in the disease-resistant category. You'll find it at most of your big box stores, so let's talk about that one next. Now, before the deer discovered my garden, this rose was constantly in bloom. You can still see lots of buds coming up, lots of blooms that are aging on it, but also the deer have decided to take lots of nibbles on it. So this is probably a third of the blooms that it would have had this time of year. It is constantly in bloom. It does get a little bit of black spot, but it doesn't completely defoliate. But this is one of those roses that from the first flush to now doesn't stop blooming. It's really impressive how many blooms this rose could put out. This is a Julia Child rose. I saw it earlier this year at all of the big box stores, and it is one that is definitely worth picking up if you are looking for a rose that blooms nonstop. Now let's go to the backyard. In the back, I like to put my more easy care roses because I have more shade in the back. And so I want to show you the roses back there because those are the ones that I recommend if you just want to plant it and forget about it. Okay, so I want to know the answer to this question because I'm curious if it's the same. The first rose I ever grew was blank. What was the first rose you ever planted? Because I'm wondering if everyone's first rose is a knockout rose, and if it isn't, I feel like it really should be. So knockout roses get a lot of flack from people as being not real roses, or they're overdone. You kind of see them as parking lot roses. They're used a lot in commercial landscape, and honestly, pay attention to things that are used in commercial landscapes because those are the things that require almost no care, that don't need any sort of maintenance, that aren't going to be picky about your fertilizer or your soil, that don't need additional amendments, that don't need to be fussed with or pruned throughout the year. Those are your true set it in the ground and forget it plants. And so that's what I love about the knockout rose. If you are looking for a rose that blooms nonstop, that never gets black spot, that doesn't have very many issues, this is a great rose. The color is very similar to the Sophie rose, but the performance on this knockout rose and the disease resistance on this knockout rose just cannot be beat. There are lots of different color varieties on this one. I've got like the old double pink one. There is a miniature version of it. If you're interested in growing roses and not sure you have the time to devote or you're worried about it, this is a great gateway rose. This is a great one to get you started. Is this the one that you started with? I really want to know. I've got a theory and I'm curious. There's another rose on this list that I want to introduce you to. Let's go. Of course, now that I have time to film this and there's a beautiful overcast day, the roses behind me don't have any blooms on them. This is a rose that I'm going to recommend to you if you already tried knockout roses, you're looking for your next rose, you're not quite ready to dip your toe into high maintenance roses. This rose behind me, I planted it earlier this year as a 1-gallon plant. It has some shade from the Japanese maple and some of the taller trees in this area, so it's not in full sun like the roses up front, and it barely has any black spot. It's about doubled in size from the time that I planted it, and it's pretty much constantly in bloom. So clearly I've been really impressed with it. It is At Last Roses from Proven Winners. I've tried some of their other shrub roses in the Oh So Easy series and I haven't had the best luck with them, honestly, but these roses are amazing. They have that beautiful peachy color that is really gorgeous and pairs nicely with so many different color perennials. It is pretty much constantly in bloom except for right now when I have to take this video. But I'm inserting some of the pictures from earlier this year, and then by the time I edit it, these buds will likely open, so I'll add in some of those photos as well. But I'm going to show you a close-up of the foliage so that you can see for yourself how much black spot it has. You can compare it to kind of the roses up front, which get even more sun and are planted in more favorable conditions. And you can decide for yourself if you think this is a rose that might do well for you. It's also one of those shrub roses that stays a really great size. It's I believe it stays under 3 feet, but I'll put it here on the screen if that's not correct. And that's just a really easy size to play with in the garden and incorporate into your landscape. If I was to say something negative about this rose, I would say that the blooms don't last very long. So it would not be a great rose to plant if you're looking for roses that you can use as a cut flower. The blooms are absolutely gorgeous, but I'd say even on the shrub, maybe tops they last 2 to 3 days. It's a very fast blooming rose, but also a very floriferous rose. So even though the blooms are not staying on the plant very long, there are so many more blooms that it's very much constantly in bloom, like I said, except for today. So I hope that update on the roses in my garden have been helpful. Like I said, this isn't the most aesthetically pleasing video. It's more of a real talk video as to how much work roses can be in the South and what they look like if you don't put in that work, even for just a season. Not worried, I know next year, if I stay on top of the routine, they will be looking good as new, better than ever, but I do have to put in the routine for them to look amazing towards the end of summer. Roses, like I said earlier in this video, look really, really great in the spring. Here around Mother's Day, they're all in full bloom, and the timing of that just can't be beat. But if you're not maintaining them towards the summer, you will still get lots of blooms, but you will likely not get lots of leaves. If you want to tell me I'm a horrible gardener or rose parent because of the conditions of my garden, go on ahead. But truly, I hope this was helpful to see what a rose can look like in the Southeast if it's not maintained or properly cared for. And hopefully this can help steer you towards some better, easier care options that might be more disease resistant and look better in your garden, even if you do decide to take the season off. Anyways, I just want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel, and I will see you in the next video.